One moment. Hello, everyone. So great of you to be here today. My name is Terri Treacy. I am wear a couple different hats when it comes to monarchs. I'm with the Illinois Monarch Project. I'm the co-chair of the urban sector, and I was an employee for 16 years with the Illinois chapter of the Sierra Club. And before I retired in 2017, I started a monarch team for the chapter, and it's still going. It was a little slow for a while, but we've ramped up in the last year, and we have all 14 of our Illinois chapter Sierra Club groups participate. I think we've got over 50 people that are involved on our listserv, and it seems to be growing every day. So that's really good news. I want to present to you the super generation to save the monarch butterfly. And so the things I'm going to talk about today basically are, why is the monarch important? We'll talk about the monarch's unique life cycle, threats and population decline of the monarch, and then go into some of the solutions for some of these threats. Before we get started though, I want to show you a little video that I hope you will find inspirational. So let's see if I can do this correctly. Okay, I apologize. I want to make sure that my video and my audio is turned on for this. Do you know if it is, Laura?
I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, you can hear me. I don't know if you can hear my computer. I'm just going to back out for a moment. I don't want to.
We can't see you.
Share sound and optimize. Okay.
And Terri,
now,
do you mind sharing?
The blue-throated.
Just like the real thing.
Uh-oh.
500 million monarch butterflies lie sleeping. They have traveled from as far as Canada to escape.
Sorry, guys. Okay, and you wanted my face on here. Let me see if I can.
If possible.
I'm not sure why. I'm not showing up. That's pretty strange. I have no idea. Oh, wait. Here we go. Sorry. They move the little controls around on you when you're on your screen. Okay.
Yeah.
So I hope you all enjoyed that little video. The first time I saw it, I was amazed, and I would love to go see that in person someday, but I'm not sure it would even look like that in person. So that little spy bot is pretty incredible. Okay, so why are pollinators important? Well, they are key species. Get rid of that little thing. They're key species for plant reproduction. 85% of the world's flowering plants, including more than 2/3 of the crop species, rely on pollinators. The US grows more than 100 crops that either need or benefit from pollinators. And economic value estimated at $3 billion a year in the United States. Fruits and seeds derived from insect pollination are a major part of approximately 25% of all birds and mammals, ranging from red-backed voles to grizzly bears. There are many types of pollinators. Hummingbirds are pollinators. Of course, butterflies and moths pollinate. Bumblebees and honeybees and all kinds of bees and wasps are pollinators. Beetles are pollinators. There's even bats are pollinators. We don't have any plants here in Illinois that require bat pollination, but we probably have all had tequila at one time or another in our lives, and we wouldn't have that if it weren't for bats pollinating the agave plant. The pollination process basically is taking pollen from the female part of a flower and transferring it to the male part of a flower. Can't get rid of that little thing. See, can't see my whole screen, I apologize. So many plants are pollinated by insects or other animals, as we just saw. So the bee, for instance, will go and pick up grains of pollen inadvertently on its body and its legs, and it flies it over to another plant and deposits it. There's also wind pollination that takes place, and that doesn't require an animal, it's just wind. And in fact, a really popular or good example of that is ragweed versus goldenrod. So in the late summer, when the goldenrod is blooming and it's all beautiful, it gets blamed for causing hay fever and allergies when it's really ragweed that's causing it. Ragweed is pollinated by the wind, and it's blowing around in the air and getting into your sinuses. And the poor goldenrod that's just standing out there beautiful gets blamed. So the life cycle of a monarch butterfly is pretty remarkable. Like most Lepidoptera species, the butterflies and the moths, they undergo what's called a complete metamorphosis, in which there are 4 distinct stages. You have egg and larva or caterpillar, then the pupa stage where they form a chrysalis, and then the adult stage. So the monarch development from egg to adult is completed in about 30 days. Monarchs usually lay a single egg on a plant, often on the bottom of a leaf near the top of the plant. And the reason for the top of the plant is that's where the new leaves are coming out, and they're the freshest, the sweetest, the easiest. They don't get all hard and leathery as the older ones are. So they look for the leaves at the top of the plant. And then they're very small. If you've ever had a chance, or you ever do have a chance to look at one under like a hand lens, do so. It's just the most remarkable, beautiful little, looks like a little jewel. Very, very beautiful. The female usually lays anywhere from 100 to 300 eggs during their lifetime. No one actually knows exactly, but that's what's thought. And the eggs hatch about 4 days after they're laid. And again, they're very small. The approximate dimension is 1.2 millimeters high and 0.9 millimeters wide. It's during the larval stage that monarchs do all of their growing. They begin life by eating their eggshell and then move on to the plant in which they were laid. And here you can see the different stages of the larval stage, or they're called instars. So over on the very far right, you've got a little teeny tiny guy. He's just popped out of the egg and starting to grow. And when he gets to this stage, he has to shed his skin and form the second instar, and then the third and the fourth and the fifth instar. And this is the adult who's going to crawl off and form a chrysalis. These are 2 pictures of the chrysalis at a different stage. They start out looking like this little green jewel. Again, if you have a chance to look at one of these close up, they're amazingly beautiful. And then just before it gets ready to leave the chrysalis, you can actually, it clears and you can actually see the wing. The primary job of the adult stage is to reproduce, to mate and lay the eggs that will become the next generation. The female will begin laying eggs right after their first mating, and both sexes will mate several times during their lives. Adults in summer generations live from 2 to 5 weeks. Male and female monarchs can be distinguished easily. Males have a black spot on a vein on each hind wing that is not present on the female. So in this picture, the male is on the top And you can see the two little black dots on the inner veins. No growth occurs in the adult stage, but monarchs need to obtain nourishment to maintain their body and fuel it for flight. Nectar from flowers, which is comprised of sugar and other nutrients, provides their adult food. Monarchs are not very picky about the source of their nectar and will visit many different flowers. They use their vision to find flowers, but once they land on a potential food source, they use taste receptors on their feet to find the nectar. An abundance of nectar sources is especially important for migrating monarchs. Monarchs that are preparing to migrate south to Mexico need to consume enough nectar to build up fat reserves. The food they eat before and during their migration south must not only power them through their long journey, but they also must sustain them through the whole winter while they're in Mexico and then fly back again in the spring. Each year, the final generation of Eastern monarchs, or known as the super generation, which emerges in late summer and early fall, has an additional job to migrate to their overwintering grounds in central Mexico. But how do monarchs, which weigh less than a paperclip and have the brain the size of a sesame seed, manage to migrate with amazing precision up to 2,300 miles each way between central Mexico and Canada? They use an internal genetically encoded compass to determine the direction they want to fly, and they have two internal clocks to tell them when to fly. One clock inside their brains is called the circannual clock. It keeps track of the annual cycles, which informs their annual migration. The other clock is a solar compass that tells time. The monarch's main navigation trick is reading the horizontal position of the sun, but the sun moves from east to south to west throughout the day. So to keep pointed in one direction relative to the sun, they also have to know what time it is. Only butterflies don't wear wristwatches. That's where the second internal clock comes in, the antenna. The antenna tells them what time of day it is. Then they use the information from their eyes and the location of the sun to orient to the right direction. So if your internal clock tells you that it's mid-morning and you're supposed to be heading south, southwest, then the sun should be on your left. If your clock tells you it's late afternoon, then the sun should be on your right. Special cells in compound eyes find sun on cloudy days using polarized light. Monarchs roost for the winter in Oyamel fir forests in central Mexico at an elevation of 2,400 to 3,600 meters, nearly 2 miles above sea level. The mountain hillsides of Oyamel Forest provide an ideal microclimate for the butterflies. Here, temperatures range from 32 to 60 degrees. If the temperature is lower, the monarchs will be forced to use their fat reserves. Host plants are plants that organisms live on and off of. Milkweed is the host plant for the monarch butterfly. Most butterflies and moths have specific host plants. Most of them have more than one host plant. Monarchs, however, only have one, and that's a species of milkweed, native species of milkweed. Without the native milkweed, monarch butterflies just could not survive. Native milkweed species in Illinois are made up of about 24 species, native to a variety of habitats in Illinois. The Chicago Botanic Garden recommends these 5 species for the Chicagoland area. Clasping milkweed, it's native to our prairies and is suitable for planting in sunny perennial flower gardens. Poke milkweed is native to our woodlands and is suitable for planting in partially shaded gardens. Swamp milkweed is native to both prairie and woodlands and wetter areas and can be planted in a variety of garden locations. Butterfly weed milkweed is a native of sunny prairies. It features bright gold and orange flowers. And purple milkweed has fragrant pinkish purple flowers and can tolerate both sun and some shade in the home landscape. So there are threats to the eastern monarch, as I think everyone on this call probably is aware. One of the main threats is decreasing habitat availability in North America. Basically, this is loss of natural areas to things like cropland and urban sprawl. And the other thing is the use of glyphosate herbicide with our like Roundup ready crops. So it's been much easier for our farmers to just broadcast Roundup over their fields, and that has also led to the decline. And another threat, of course, is habitat loss in their where they migrate to in central Mexico, the loss of forests through cutting, basically. Even though there's protected areas, there is illegal logging that does happen. And then increasing frequency and variability in severe weather, like sudden cold snaps, heavy precipitation, and snow can all impact butterfly populations. Over the past 2 decades, surveys of wintering populations have documented steep declines, with numbers dropping to levels that threaten extinction. The eastern monarchs, which converge onto a small region in the central Mexican highlands, congregate on trees in such dense clusters that they can't be counted as individuals. So instead, the researchers estimate the numbers by measuring the areas of trees the butterflies cover. During the 2019-2020 season, that area dropped to 2.83 hectares, half of the previous winter, and down from 18 hectares from the 1990s. The US Geological Survey has predicted 6 hectares are required for monarchs to stay afloat in the long run. So you can see that red line is basically the 6 hectares that are necessary, and all those years that the population has been really far below that. So after years of study, in December of 2020, the US Fish and Wildlife Service announced that the monarch qualified for protection under the Federal Endangered Species Act, but it would not be listed because there are 161 species already being considered for the list that are higher priority for support from the agency due to their limited budget. So that's quite sad. Therefore, it is so important that we all pitch in to be the super generation that saves the monarch butterfly. Prairies such as this one shown here are part of that landscape that generations have enjoyed here in the Prairie State, the reason it's named the Prairie State, but the prairie has disappeared. And while every action is important, we can increase the conservation benefit of our actions when we work together. The monarch butterfly can be found around the world, but it is the eastern monarch butterfly that is best known for its migration every fall in North America. As you can see from this figure, Illinois is centrally located in the monarch migration northward and southward. Illinois is not working alone in ensuring migrating monarchs have breeding and feeding habitats. 17 states committed to add 1.3 billion stems of new milkweed to the landscape by 2038 as part of the Mid-America Monarch Conservation Strategy. To support that regional goal, Illinois committed to adding 150 million stems of new milkweed embedded in diverse nectar plants by 2038. How did we arrive at that goal? Several factors came into play, but the main driver was land area. Illinois accounts for about 12% of the priority area defined by the US Fish and Wildlife, so we selected about 12% of the 1.3 billion stems as our goal. Illinois' goal of 150 million additional milkweed stems is a big goal, and it's difficult to visualize what it looks like. Consider for a moment if every person in Illinois planted 12 stems of milkweed, or if 4 milkweed stems were added to every acre in Illinois, we would meet our goal. Now we know that it's not feasible for every person or acre in Illinois to be involved. Some land has more ability to support much higher densities of milkweed. and some people and organizations have greater ability to plant or support additional milkweed. Bottom line, we need everyone to do the most they can in order to provide the milkweed and nectar plants that monarchs need throughout their life cycle in Illinois. In June of 2014, the White House established the Federal Pollinator Health Task Force, co-chaired by the Secretary of Agriculture and the Administrator of Environmental Protection Agency. In May 2015, the task force published the National Strategy to Promote the Health of Honeybees and Other Pollinators. This strategy sought to engage all segments of society to make meaningful and important steps to reverse pollinator decline by focusing on immediate changes that can influence pollinator health, as well as efforts to improve pollinator health over the long term. The strategy emphasized conservation through public-private partnerships. Pollinator conservation in Illinois began in 1975 when it was named the Illinois state insect, but more recently in 2015, Illinois declared the monarch the species of greatest conservation need. And then in early 2016, the Illinois Department of Natural Resources identified the need to coordinate monarch butterfly conservation activities across Illinois and to engage stakeholders in the development of a variety of strategies to support monarch habitat. An initial survey collected information from individuals and organizations on existing monarch butterfly conservation activities in Illinois. In September 2016, the Department of Natural Resources convened the Monarch Butterfly Summit in Springfield to begin to develop a unified message and strategy for monarch butterfly conservation in Illinois. The Illinois Monarch Project was established as a direct result of the 2016 summit in order to bring together representatives of the agriculture, rights-of-way, urban, and natural land sectors to address the stressors on monarch butterfly habitat, enhance existing habitat on the ground, and plan additional conservation actions for the monarch butterfly. A technical steering committee was formed, and in April 2018, a group charter was developed outlining the agencies, sectors, and stakeholders involved in the Illinois Monarch Project and the governance and structure by which the group operates. The charter also established Illinois Monarch Project's mission and vision for the monarch butterfly conservation in Illinois. The mission is simply helping monarch butterflies thrive throughout Illinois by collaborating on conservation activities and encouraging engagement by public and private landowners across diverse urban and rural landscapes. And the vision is inspired Illinoisans fostering a culture of conservation and ensuring future biodiversity through engagement in monarch butterfly and pollinator habitat initiatives. The foundational tenets are establishing a long-term action plan to enhance monarch butterfly reproduction and survival in Illinois. Proud to say that's been accomplished. Engaging all hands on deck by partnering with agriculture, rights-of-way, urban, and natural land sectors. This is ongoing. Promoting and supporting voluntary conservation action by private landowners. This is you folks. And supporting regional, national, and international monarch butterfly conservation strategies. The original function of the Illinois Monarch Project was the development of the action plan, and this comprehensive plan was developed with collaborative input and contributions from diverse industries, communities, landowners, and land managers across Illinois. The work of the Illinois Monarch Project has been carried out through several active committees that comprise representatives from state agencies, sector leaders, and stakeholders. 4 distinct sectors participated in the Illinois Monarch Project and have had an essential role in developing the action plan. The agriculture sector consists of stakeholders across Illinois, including farmers and the associations that represent them, industry specialists, scientists, outreach and education practitioners, and state and federal agencies. Farmers across the state are actively conserving habitat for pollinators and monarchs, including creating new habitat and enhancing non-cropped areas to provide habitat benefits. The rights-of-way sector consists of utility and transportation stakeholders who manage extensive networks of land across Illinois, including roadside, transmission and distribution lines, pipelines, energy generation sites, railroads, office campuses, and other facilities. In the state of Illinois, there are more than 550,000 acres of utility and transportation lands. The natural lands sector includes all protected natural areas owned, managed, or under easement that are held by public or private organizations, including areas that fall under one of the other sectors. In 2014, there were approximately 1.2 million acres of natural lands in Illinois. These acres include an estimated 50,000 acres of grassland, 165,000 acres of wetland, and 568,000 acres of forest. Key urban stakeholders include managers and expansive green space, including municipal governments, park districts, wastewater treatment districts, schools, churches, golf courses, cultural institutions, and corporations with campuses. An often overlooked opportunity is residential properties. Individual homes may only have a small amount of land, but added together, those lands constitute an enormous habitat potential, not to mention homeowners associations and other residential complexes. While the prospects for adding milkweed stems will vary from city to city, there is clearly potential for cities and towns of every size to make a difference in monarch conservation and reach millions of people, both through engaging residents in understanding the role of urban places and supporting monarch butterflies, and through developing resources that anyone can use to put functional habitat on the ground to support the monarch population. Another Illinois Monarch Project initiative and aspect of the action plan is the Route 66 Monarch Flyway. A 66-mile wide corridor from Chicago to St. Louis, the Flyway brings together the iconic historic Route 66 highway with Illinois' efforts to help the monarch butterfly by planting native wildflowers and restoring habitat projects within the corridor. So basically 33 miles on either side of I-55, AKA the historic Route 66 is in the corridor from Chicago to St. Louis. A dedicated committee with representation from Pheasants Forever, Illinois Farm Bureau, McLean County Soil and Water Conservation District, National Park Service, Chicago Zoological Society, Illinois Department of Natural Resources, and Department of Transportation, and the Illinois Route 66 Scenic Byway has been working on the Flyway for a few years now. The action plan was endorsed and officially adopted by 4 state agencies: the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Transportation, and the Environmental Protection. The directors of each agency signed the action plan at a live Facebook signing ceremony in the summer of 2020. The monarch butterfly has become a singular symbol of the importance of pollinators and the need to help pollinators thrive. My urban sector co-chair refers to the monarch as the gateway insect. Given this status, the monarch butterfly provides a unique opportunity to educate and engage people of all ages and backgrounds about the importance of pollinators and habitat conservation. Illinoisans have been working to engage people through the monarch butterfly since 1975, when school children across the state chose the monarch to represent Illinois as the state insect. 6 other states have also adopted the monarch as a state symbol. Also in support of monarchs and their habitat, in 2017, Illinois passed a bill into law adopting milkweed as the official Illinois state wildflower. Illinoisans from all walks of life, children and adults alike, have been inspired to engage in conservation efforts because of the monarch. We've now entered the implementation phase of the Illinois Monarch Action Plan, and I hope you're inspired to engage in your own way to this all-hands-on-deck initiative to save the monarch butterfly from extinction. And a few ideas of things that people can do include take the Illinois Monarch Project pledge, and we can have any link that's in this list available to you later. And I encourage you to encourage your city or village to sign the National Wildlife Federation's Mayor's Monarch Pledge. This is once a year pledge that they have to make. The pledge opportunity for 2021 has ended, but it's not too early to start talking to your mayor for 2022. If your mayor is already signed, take the opportunity to call them and thank them for taking that initiative and encourage them to sign again next year. Plant a pollinator garden or help a friend or a colleague to plant a garden. Register one or more Monarch Watch way stations in Illinois. Try to limit areas of mown turf and pesticide use. Manage invasive plants that threaten native vegetation. Volunteer with your park district or forest preserve to create new habitat or maintain or enhance acres of existing pollinator habitat. Host an educational event like today about monarch butterfly conservation. Participate in or promote citizen science efforts, now I believe referred to as community science efforts, to monitor monarch populations in Illinois. Right now the Field Museum has a community project going on, and we'll supply you with the link. Their next opportunity to get involved with that is coming up on May 27th. And share information. Talk to your neighbors, talk to anyone who will listen about the issues, about how cool the monarch is, about the threats that it's facing, and about the Illinois Monarch Project and the action plan and ways that they can help and get involved. I'd like to point out that the IMP website has a great resource page. I should say pages. There's a really long list of very helpful things from for homeowners to land managers. If you're involved with like a HOA and you've got hired people that take care of the grounds there, there's information on the website that will has like best management practices for mowing or pesticide use, that kind of thing. So there's just a lot of handouts and available information that you can share, not only just for your own home, but in your community. And maybe most important of all is to think broadly about the bigger picture and what really has to happen on a large scale to save the monarch is we need to make sure that a lot of our agricultural land is taking advantage of conservation reserve program for farmers, and to make sure that that still exists and is fair to farmers. So continually urge your federal senators and representatives to fund and expand that program. It's just so important. And then support organizations that work to make sure that we have sound government policy that protects land, like using the Conservation Reserve Program. And we want programs that are fair, have fair compensation for our farmers. They work hard to produce our food, and we need them to be on board fully with this program to save the monarch. So we have an obligation as stewards of the environment to protect monarchs. Improving habitat for monarchs will in turn provide and improve habitat for multiple other species, including humans. And so with that, I conclude my presentation and look forward to conversation. And try to stop share. Here we go.
Thank you, Terri.
You're welcome.
That was very interesting. So if you have any questions for Terri, please enter them in the chat. And while people are thinking, I just thought if you could start with a few plants aside from milkweed to tell people that are important for monarchs.
Yeah, I live in central Illinois, and I see the most monarchs in late summer, actually. I don't see that many migrating through in the spring, but I do get them coming back. So it kind of depends on where you're at. But if you see a lot of monarchs in the late summer and fall, they need late blooming flowers. So one of my favorites is asters because they bloom very, very late. And they just are absolute butterfly magnets. Joe Pye weed is a good one. Gosh, I don't know. There's just so many. The Coreopsis is good. Really, any of our native prairie type plants are going to be good pollinator nectar sources for our pollinators. And there's plant lists. I'm sure there's a couple plant lists on the resource page of the Illinois Monarch Project resource.
Oh, that's excellent to know. So, oh, go ahead, Adrian. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, we got some questions here. The first one is, could you explain what milkweed plugs and milkweed stems are? Like
Milkweed plugs and milkweed what?
stems.
Huh? I'm sorry.
Milkweed stems, you know, like.
Oh, stems. I'm sorry. I couldn't hear the word stem.
Sorry.
Okay, so a plug is a type of plant. Like you've got a plant in a pot, or a plug is just a smaller plant that's been grown like in a nursery. A stem, so a lot of species of milkweed they're sort of branched, or there's multiple stems coming out of the ground. So each stem is considered a stem. So if you've got a butterfly weed that's got 4 branches, that's 4 stems.
Okay, so someone wants to know, did they ever analyze why in 96 and 97 there was a much higher population of monarchs, a real spike? What was being done to help them, if anything?
I do not know. If anyone here knows, I imagine it's a combination of circumstances, like the weather was good. There are problems in their overwintering areas, like I said, there's illegal logging that goes on. So I would say probably weather and just circumstances were ideal. I imagine. It's hard. I don't know, but if anyone does know, please speak up.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables. It could have been ideal weather everywhere that year.
Yeah, no wildfires that disturb them in Mexico or here, or it's hard to say.
Okay, so Bill would like to know, he says, you mentioned 5 varieties of milkweed for Illinois. Would you please mention them again, especially the first?
Yeah, and I got that information from the Chicago Botanic Garden. So if you go to their website, you'll get to the same page I got that information from. The first one was called clasping milkweed, which is interesting because I'm not familiar with that one in particular, but it sounds interesting. One was butterfly weed, milkweed, that's Asclepias tuberosa, Asclepias incarnata, that's swamp milkweed, poke milkweed, Asclepias exaltata, and purple milkweed, Asclepias purpurensis. That's actually one of my favorite. It kind of grows like common milkweed. It has that sort of look to it, but the flower is just purple instead of pink. It's gorgeous.
All right, I'm putting a link to the Botanic Garden in the chat right now.
Great.
And then let's see what else. So far, which areas or regions, or I guess you could say organizations in Illinois have taken the Monarch Pledge? Is it, are a lot of people getting onto this, or?
Yeah, I think the last IMP meeting I attended, there were over 500 pledges. Sierra Club folks have, that I know of, have contributed about 180 of those. So yeah, and I don't know the breakdown between organizations and individuals of that 500 plus, but it's catching on, and that was probably over a month ago, so I'm sure it's probably more.
Oh, that's great. And And it is important. I know like there's the distinction between the organizations and individuals that can take that pledge. And then they're recommending that municipalities take the Mayors for Monarchs pledge, which is run by the National Wildlife Federation. So that's two
Correct.
different things.
And we're actually hoping, if it's not too much trouble, for municipal leaders to take both pledges, because by taking the Illinois pledge, it just gives Illinois an idea of what's happening here, whereas the National Wildlife Federation pledge it's all over the place. It's nationwide. It's just easier for us to keep track of what folks plan to do here in Illinois.
Oh, that's great to know. You're the butterfly folks here in Oak Park and River Forest. That's our next sort of initiative, is to get our municipal leaders to sign pledges and take action. So.
Yeah, and it's not as onerous, I guess you'd say, as the National Wildlife Federation pledge. Not that that's onerous, but it's not as long or complicated. And it is just a way to kind of keep track of what we think people are going to be doing here in Illinois. And one of the things in the plan, one of the goals in the plan is to come up with a way to actually count these stems. That's really difficult. How are we going to do that? And so the scientists that are on the steering committee are still working out how people will be able to count and record. And I'm really hoping that we can come up with a way for urban folks to be able to contribute what they've done in a fashion that's easy to get a hold of. It's going to be some sort of database, but I'm just not sure how we'll be able to contribute to that. But they are working on it, and so probably within the next year we'll have a way to monitor and contribute to that.
Oh, that would be fabulous. Plus, monarch moves around; it appears and disappears. I mean, milkweed appears and disappears.
Yeah, so like for the large land, so for instance, the Department of Natural Resources, at this point, they're basically just using GIS information to calculate, to guesstimate, because there's no way you can go out on 500 or 1 million acres or whatever it is and count stems. But they do have a way to figure out based on some field observation, and then they can just extrapolate that to a scale and scale it up.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so Nancy says she has lots of common milkweed, but she doesn't see many monarchs. Are the birds eating the larvae?
It's not common milkweed, really isn't their favorite milkweed. So if there are other milkweeds around, they will probably use those. They like swamp milkweed a lot. I've seen them on my butterfly milkweed. I do see them on my regular milkweed. It's hard to say. Yeah, I'm sure birds probably eat some of the eggs. One thing that's kind of interesting, probably a good place to point this out, is, as I said earlier, they like to lay their eggs on young leaves. So if they're coming through and your milkweeds are older and the leaves are kind of getting to that brittle, leathery stage, they're just not tender and succulent, they may not lay their eggs on those. People used to be very, very concerned about roadway mowing, and it turns out the experts have put together a best management practices and have figured out that actually mowing during the year and is actually good for the monarchs, because the milkweeds will regrow. And so by the time the monarchs are coming back through, there's new leaves for them to eat. So it's actually a good thing when there's mowing.
Wow, that's some good information.
Yeah, I was surprised, but it makes sense when you think about it. So, because it does come back. I've cut it down and it comes right back. So
early mowing is better.
Early mowing, yeah.
Well, that would give some time for some of the natives to be under the mower in early and then grow up, the native forbs, the flowers.
Yeah.
Like that. Okay. All right. So I've got a couple little plant questions. Joan says autumn joy sedum seems popular with pollinators. Does it have nutritional value for monarchs?
Yeah, all flowers have sugar in them, and so they're going to be fine. If a butterfly goes to a plant, it's getting some nutrition. So yeah, in fact, I'll admit I plant things like zinnias because they're so easy to grow and butterflies love them. It's just, I feel like, and they bloom forever until frost. So that's a non-native annual that's not invasive that, I will plant.
Yeah,
Just
we're
provide that nectar.
Mexican sunflower is another one.
Oh yeah, they love that.
They're so crazy for that stuff.
Yeah.
So Catherine says she has balloon plant hairy ball milkweed seeds. Are they helpful? That's something I've never heard of.
I don't know anything about that. Is there any sort of scientific name that goes along with hairy ball milkweed?
I don't know if someone
Not
could.
provided.
Yeah.
I would just caution people to make sure that whatever they're planting is native to the United States, to this part of Illinois, because there are some non-native milkweeds. They're not Asclepias, but they're called milkweeds that people plant as an annual here, and they're pretty detrimental to our monarchs. So do not plant non-native. If it's called a milkweed, but it's not one of our natives, don't plant it.
Yeah, tropical milkweed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's African.
Okay, so Donna
milkweed.
says, I've seen an African milk. Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So Donna says, I've seen monarchs in Europe. I'm just curious about where they go to overwinter. Would you know?
I don't know. The only thing I know is that monarchs are worldwide, but our monarchs here in the central part of the country have the most famous migration. They're known for their migration. I don't think any other place do they migrate that far. So we have an East Coast population that just pretty much stays, like in Florida and stuff. They don't really go anywhere. The West Coast, they just go into California. They don't go all the way to Mexico. So I guess other places in the world, they do migrate, but they don't have that 2,300 to 3,000 mile stretch.
Okay, so we have a comment. 45 mayors have signed the Mayor's Monarch Pledge in Illinois. That's from Carol Elkins.
Great.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Okay, so Marisa says, I saw a tree in Mexico called moringa, totally covered with monarchs. Do you know what native plants or trees in Mexico are good for monarchs?
Well, so the trees that they go to when they winter are oyamel. They're a type of fir tree, sort of hemlockish, like in nature, in looks. As far as when they're traveling, I don't know if the tree you're referring to has flowers or what, if it was nectaring, but they will rest in any tree. For instance, when I lived in Southern Illinois in Pope County, there was one year when my monarchs were migrating through, and they rested on some oak hickory type trees just along the road. It's a rural road. There were thousands. I don't know how many. It was like a mini, scene from the film I showed. So yeah, they fly during the day and then they bunch up at night and rest, and then they take off again the next day when the sun warms. So that particular tree, I really don't know, but they're probably just resting.
Okay, so here's a question about raising monarchs. Do you feel it helps for people to take the monarch caterpillars inside to raise and release them? Does that help the population?
So there are a couple different thoughts on that. If it's just an individual and you're committed to it and you do a good job, you might be able to introduce some monarchs into the population that may have not made it out in the wild for whatever reason. I mean, things do happen to them. I think raising monarchs for education, because it's so exciting for little kids to experience that, is useful for that aspect. We're not going to, I will say, we're not going to solve the monarch crisis by bringing a few monarchs in and raising them. That's not the answer. And also caution people, do not buy chrysalises from these big companies that sell them. There are companies that raise them and sell the pupa, and they ship them all over the place. And there is some evidence that those monarchs, some of those monarchs don't know how to migrate. They don't know how to orient. It's actually, the other problem with that is they can have a bunch with a disease, and they're released into the wild. Those monarchs can actually spread disease to the wild monarchs. So I'm honestly not a big proponent of raising them.
Well, and I have, there's folks, I know folks who have big pollinator gardens on the parkways by the streets, and they get upset because people come and take the eggs. They'll come look at their gardens and take the eggs. And these folks they're trying to just grow native gardens, and so the monarchs can do their regular, what they're supposed biological imperative. And so
I think
so there's that too,
I would be upset too if they stole my, yeah. I mean, I'm just really a proponent of let nature do what it's been doing long before we ever got involved. And just, focus on habitat, make sure that your decision makers, your senators, your representatives, your local lawmakers are on board with saving places like the Wolf Prairie. To me, that's the important place to put our energy, is into saving habitat and creating new habitat.
So do monarchs like dill? Phyllis thinks she had some larvae on dill last year.
No, you'll only see monarch larvae on milkweed. That's the only host plant. You're probably seeing the black swallowtail on dill.
Okay. Which are also nice to have around. So.
Oh yeah. And like I said, my co-chair in the Illinois Monarch Project, he likes to call the monarch the gateway insect. It's called the Illinois Monarch Project, but really it's about raising awareness and saving and making habitat for all pollinators, all of our butterfly species. They're just an iconic, they're like the poster child. So yeah, it's really about all of it, not just one species.
Okay, so here's an interesting question. Lalani would like to know what's the optimum time to cut or mow the milkweed down so that new leaves can grow.
That probably depends on the year, the climate. I would say, after the spring migration north, anytime between then and when they're going to come back in the fall would be fine.
Okay.
Last year I got some aphids on one of my common milkweeds, so I just cut it back and it grew back. Yeah,
like even in June, you could just cut it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the Latin for the hairy ball milkweed. It's Gymnocarpus physocarpa.
Well,
but that doesn't sound like a milkweed.
It's not Asclepius. All the milkweed species in native are, the genus is Asclepius.
Right. Okay, so Lorna would like to know, how do milkweed plants propagate? She said they were releasing the seeds into open seed areas, but also, is it by roots that they spread?
Common milkweed does spread by roots. And it can be, some people say it can be really aggressive and invasive. I've grown it in my yard, and when I see a shoot coming up in a place that I don't want it, I just pull it up, and it usually doesn't resprout, or you can just keep pulling it along with all the other weeding you do all summer long. So I've been able to keep it where I want it quite easily. Yeah, if you let it go, it could kind of take over your bed. But
yeah, and then there's the clumping ones, which are like the swamp milkweed,
and butterfly milkweed. Yeah.
All right, so Carolyn would like to know, is there a Monarch project in Toronto, Canada?
I don't know. Sorry.
I guess you could Google Monarch Project or Monarchs Toronto or something like that. I bet there's an organization, whatever. I bet there is.
Yeah, I'm sure there's someone working on it. Yeah.
Okay, so then there's some comments, and a person named Maro Arutunian has been very nicely answering some questions in the comments, giving extra information. And then someone asked me, what was I saying? Mexican sunflower. That is Tithonia, Tithonia. It's an annual. It grows 5 feet high and is quite abundant, and many species of pollinators like it. So that's all the questions.
Yeah. Tithonia is great. It gets really wide and bushy too. So make sure you have a lot of space for it.
Yeah, and it needs staking. I've seen at the Botanic Garden where they've done a whole clump of them at the Chicago Botanic Garden. And not only were there pollinators of various species, but there were little birds down among the stems.
Oh yeah, they'll eat the seeds.
It was a lot of fun. But mostly though, I mean, I'm a native plant person, but that's one I'll make an exception for.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Yes, Catherine Thurman has more about this plant, the hairy balls milkweed, aka. Thank you, Catherine. You're doing good research. It's native to South Africa, and she said I would have cluelessly planted it if I hadn't taken this class. Thanks.
Well, good. I'm glad we saved you from that. Wonderful. Appreciate you doing the research on it. Yeah, it's the that do not plant tropical, and it is sold apparently at nurseries now because as an annual for people to plant in their yards. So please avoid that one.
Yeah, it doesn't it like genetically confuse the monarchs if it lasts too long, or I'm
not sure. I think I've heard that it can actually poison them. That there's just really nothing good about it, and you just don't want to plant it. I don't know if the babies eat it or not. I'm not really sure, but I have heard that it's poisonous, so I guess they will eat it. And then
oh yeah, there's a couple invasives like swallowwort. There's some vines in Illinois that are invasive vines that tempt the monarchs to lay on the leaves, but then the babies cannot digest.
Yeah.
Oh yes, and Carol is reminding us that tropical has problems with OE, which is a disease in the South, because it doesn't die back and kill the disease. And so then it can spread to monarchs.
Oh, okay. Well, that's bad.
Right. And Donna says, yes, in the South, but not here. But with climate change, that could change.
Yeah. Lorna asks, how about water for butterflies or monarchs?
Yeah. And Linda answered this. No.
Oh, I didn't see that. Sorry.
No, Maro, again, thank you, Maro. A shallow dish with some dirt and rocks at the bottom works well for butterflies.
Yeah, all butterflies can use a little water, or just even just like a wet, like I used to live on a gravel road that had puddles, and they really like that because they get minerals out of the dirt and the rocks on the road. So it's called puddling, and you can get the swallowtails are really famous for congregating around wet spots.
Yeah, I just set up a little thing in my garden with some dirt and gravel, and apparently I did it for bees, but bees like dirty water. They don't want this clean chlorinated stuff. They want water that's got organic material in it. So I would imagine the butterflies might be sort of similar to that.
So does my dog. I have sort of an in the weeds question about the stems. I'm just curious, why did they choose stems instead of plants? And then for the counting, What's the interval? That's over a 10-year period, or are there, I mean, plants grow, so there'll be new stalks.
Right, and that's what the people who are more scientific than I am and working out these details.
Okay, it's too in the weeds. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why they chose stems over just plants exactly. I apologize for not exactly knowing that. And how they're going to count. So the goal is 150 million new plants by 2038. And that includes plants that have been established since, I think they're going to count, like go back to, I think, 2014. So we'll be counting plants that they know about from then. I won't be able to answer that question. I don't think any of us will until they come up with a system for how we're actually going to be doing the counting and recording.
It's hard. It seems like a big task.
Yeah.
To figure out.
Meantime, gosh, you guys just sold 580 plugs or something, and down
780.
780 here this weekend in Central Illinois. We just had 200 plants given away. So, I mean, people are doing this all over the state. It's pretty exciting. I had some folks. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Adrian, I think we had some Year of the Butterfly people give away plants or seeds, right?
Yeah, we had actually some of the congregations have been giving out seeds to their families, their parishes, and to the Sunday school children. And also the library, I think, is going to be giving away or has given away seeds. So it's very contagious. People really love just the whole idea, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. Sierra Club, we made up 4,500 seed packets with butterfly weed, milkweed, about 10 seeds per packet. So I don't know, do that math. That's a lot of seeds, 45,000 seeds to be given away across the state. Obviously not all of them will get planted or will make it, but the idea is it's a way to attract attention. When you're out talking to people, people will come up because they see these seeds and they want to give it a try. And I just think it's just sort of, the more we talk about this topic, we're creating a movement to save monarchs, and that's important. And, it's the people who are going to create the movement to make the really big changes in our society, to want to save land, create more land. So yeah,
it's exciting, and it's also I have two things to say about that. Number one is we also must not forget the need for nectar plants, especially late in the season, like asters and milk, goldenrods, and some of the later seasons. And someone also made, again, Mexican sunflower. She said she considers her Tithonias as the banquet monarchs feed upon on their trip back to Mexico. Nothing like a flock of orange Mexican sunflower. But yeah, that's really important along the roads, to have those late flowering sunflowers and for the extra energy. And then I heard somewhere that farmers are starting to places where their land, like at corners of fields where it's not so productive, they're letting milkweed and monarch plants grow. And I just heard that. I didn't know if that was part of the.
Yeah, so the Farm Bureau has really come on board with this whole program. I mean, the cynical side of me says, well, yeah, because the monarch is, qualifies to be listed as a threatened and endangered species. So, they really need to come on board to prevent having to deal with that. If they do become listed, that's going to impact their farming. So it just seems like it's easier for them to come on board now and try to help, so we don't get to that point. So anyway, the Farm Bureau is very supportive. There's several Farm Bureau employees on the steering committee of the Illinois Monarch Project, and they're they're all about it. The same thing with the Department of Transportation. They have dedicated employees just to work on this issue and the Route 66. So I don't know, I'm pretty excited that our state agencies are on board, that the Farm Bureau is on board. Can't say that all farmers are, but it's a start. So, and then again, like I mentioned, we really need to make sure that the Conservation Reserve Program stays in place. And I was reading an article that someone sent me that said that there's a problem with the Conservation Reserve Program in some of the funding, that there's, they used to fund for maintenance. So farmers get paid to turn cropland into wildlife habitat. And that used to pay for the maintenance of that. And apparently there's some suggestion that they're going to stop paying, or they have stopped paying for the maintenance. Well, as we all know, you can't just let a field go. You have to maintain it, or it's going to end up being full of autumn olive or buckthorn, or whatever the invasive species du jour is. It's going to get taken over. So there has to be some maintenance money provided for that program as well. There's other thoughts that the whole ethanol program, paying farmers to grow corn to produce ethanol, should be phased out. But I'm just not prepared as an individual. And I know the Illinois Monarch Project as an entity is not prepared to go there. But individually, people could think about it, talk about it, and talk to their legislators about those kind of programs that are not really that helpful to wildlife.
That's really important. Here's someone in Utah who bought 2,000 seeds and is giving out, made them into packets, and she's giving them away.
Great.
100 packets giving out. So that's a really great individual initiative.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's all the questions.
Well, thank you so much. This was fun. I hope I answered a few questions, and I can provide some of those links to you, and you can send it out to the registrants later if you want.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I'll send out a follow-up link with the recording, so I can include it in there.
Okay.
And we can actually put some links on the YouTube, I think, in the information.
Oh, right. And I'm just now pasting in a link to the Illinois Monarch Project in the chat.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's.
We did it a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
There's a question: how can I get the recorded copy? We'll send a link out to all the registrants. Maybe not this week because Adrian's out of town, but definitely next week.
Yeah, I'll be on it. We'll put it on our YouTube channel. I could do it actually on Monday, I think. Maybe.
That's all right. No pressure on you. It will get up there within a week or two.
Okay, last question. Thank you. Lots of thanks. Good talk. Good words. Thank you everyone for the good words. Very informative. Could you talk just a little bit about stratification? And would milkweed seeds be good candidates for winter sowing? Yes. Yes,
plant them in the late fall. That's the easiest way. Then you don't have to mess with stratification.
That's true.
That's what I would suggest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just mark where you put them because they're late to come up.
Yeah, if you do start them indoors, you put them in the refrigerator for, I don't know, 60 days, something like that, in a moist maybe peat moss or something. You don't want it really wet, but moist. They just need to be cold, and then you can pot them up, and they'll be ready to go in spring. So you probably want to start that in January, maybe. And then you'd have little seedlings that you have to take care of, and then they can go outside after frost.
We have on our YouTube channel a video on cold stratification, winter sowing rather, and therefore cold stratification. It's a little demo.
Right.
Maybe I'll put in a link to the YouTube channel.
One thing you need to watch out for as far as collecting seed is, first of all, if your plant gets aphids, your seeds probably aren't going to be really good. But also, you know, those milkweed bugs that get on your milkweed, they're orange and black, and then sometimes they'll just be covering the pod. Unfortunately, they suck the moisture out of the seeds. And if you've got a pod that's been attacked like that, the seeds probably are not going to be viable. So yeah, a lot of times people have milkweed seeds available, but they're not really good seeds. So be careful with that.
I'll add to that cardinals really like milkweed bugs. I have seen them hunting, and I have seen adult cardinals sort of training their children to.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, good.
My backyard, it is nature red in tooth and claw, I will tell you.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I mean, it's something I've observed. I haven't bothered to like read up on it or anything, but it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
Excellent.
All righty.
Thank you, everyone, and
Thank
especially you, Terri.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. It was fun. Thanks a lot.
Oh, one more thing.
Oh.
Sorry. This is an opportunity to do a little